These are
There's
the
a
freshest we've got
surprisingly
today.
strange fact that many people never think about
Great, I'll
when
take a dozen
standing
of
in
those,
front of a
please.
seafood counter. When you eat an oyster, a mussel, or a clam, you're actually eating part of the ocean's natural water filtration system. It sounds a bit unusual at first, doesn't it? Yet in essence, these small creatures function like living biological water filters. They don't hunt like fish. They don't chase prey the way squid or tuna do. Instead, they simply drink seawater. With every sip of water that flows into their bodies, microscopic food particles are trapped, while cleaner water is pushed back out. This process repeats itself continuously throughout the day, almost like a filtration machine that never turns off. To picture it more easily, imagine the water filter you might have at home. If it processes a few dozen liters of water a day, that already feels impressive. But a single adult oyster can filter more than 150 liters of water every day. That's roughly the same amount of water a person might use for a single shower. And the fascinating part is that it's never just one oyster doing the work. In a natural oyster reef, there can be millions of oysters filtering water at the same time. Suddenly, these creatures that seem so small begin to look more like an enormous ocean water treatment plant. But the story doesn't end with filtration. When oysters gather together in large numbers, they accidentally build something that looks remarkably like an underwater city. The way shellfish eat is actually very simple, yet extremely efficient. They use a mechanism known as filter feeding. Seawater is drawn into their bodies through a small system of tubes. As the water flows past their gills and internal filtering structures, tiny particles such as algae, microorganisms, and organic matter become trapped. The remaining water, now cleaner, is expelled back into the ocean. The process sounds simple, but its impact is astonishing. An oyster can filter around 150 liters of water every day. If that number is hard to visualize, imagine one of those large 20-liter office water bottles. A single oyster can filter the equivalent of 7 or 8 of those bottles daily. Mussels and clams perform the same task, although their filtration rates may vary. When thousands or even millions live together in the same area,
water through its gills
the total
tiny
amount of
hairs
water
called
processed
cilia.
each day becomes
This
enormous.
traps the
Because of this, scientists studying coastal environments have noticed something interesting places, with healthy oyster reefs often have clearer and more stable seawater. Suspended particles in the water decrease. Sunlight can penetrate deeper, and other ecosystems begin to thrive as well. But filtration is only part of the story. As oysters continue to grow and live together, they unintentionally create something even more remarkable, an entirely new ecosystem. When an oyster reaches adulthood, it attaches itself firmly to a rock or to the shell of another oyster. The next oyster attaches on top of that one, then another, and another. Over time, thousands of oysters stack and cluster together, forming massive structures known as oyster reefs. From a distance, these reefs may look like rough piles of rocks on the seafloor, but if you zoom in closer, you'll notice countless small gaps between the shells. Those spaces become perfect hiding spots for other marine life. Young fish, small crabs, shrimp, and many other sea creatures find shelter among the layers of shells. For them, an oyster reef is like a safe apartment complex in the middle of the ocean. And that's not all. These natural structures also help weaken the force of ocean waves. When waves move toward the shoreline, oyster reefs act like a natural buffer, absorbing part of the water's energy. As a result, coastlines receive an extra layer of protection against erosion. Imagine a seawall built entirely by living creatures. No concrete, no machines, just time and millions of oysters working quietly together. Yet what surprises many scientists the most lies in another aspect. When humans began farming these species, they discovered something remarkable. This is one of the very rare forms of agriculture that doesn't deplete the environment, it actually improves it. Most types of agriculture require enormous amounts of resources: land, fresh water, fertilizer, animal feed. All of these must be supplied from outside the system. Raising cattle requires grass.
All right,
Fish
bring it
farming
over here.
requires
Got it. Careful,
manufactured
they're sharp.
feed. Growing crops requires fertilizers.
We're almost full
But
on
farming
this one.
oysters or mussels is different. They don't need to be fed. All of their food comes from microscopic particles, naturally drifting through seawater. In
Looks like
other
good growth
words,
on this batch.
the ocean has
Noted.
already
Moving
been
on to the next
providing
row.
their food long before humans arrived. While feeding, these shellfish continue to filter the water, removing suspended particles and improving the quality of the surrounding environment. Many studies show that oyster farming areas can help reduce excess nutrients in the water, nutrients that often trigger harmful algal blooms.
These
For
look
this
good.
reason,
Careful with the smaller ones.
many scientists consider shellfish farming to be
This
one of the
bucket is
most
full. How many more
sustainable
cages
forms of
left on this
aquaculture
line?
on the planet. It's fascinating to think that a food production industry can both provide nourishment for people and help clean the marine environment at the same time. That's not something we see every day. When you look at the full story, oysters, mussels, and clams no longer appear to be just seafood on a plate. They are the silent engineers of the ocean.
The vital nutrients
Every day,
are rapidly consumed,
They
leading to
filter
significant
hundreds of
depletion in
liters
the
of
seawater.
water. When they gather together, they build living reefs that create shelter for countless marine creatures. And when humans farm them, they continue to purify the waters around them. In other words, they don't just take from the ocean, they give a great deal back to it. And if you enjoy stories where science hides behind the familiar things on our dining tables, keep staying curious. Because the ocean still holds countless fascinating secrets waiting to be told sometimes, beginning with the smallest creatures of all.